Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are on a serious mission. If you're tuning in right now, there is a very good chance you are staring down the barrel of the AP Environmental Science exam, specifically Unit 5.
Ah, the infamous Unit 5, land and water use. It's a massive topic.
Massive is like an understatement. We've gone through the stack, all the articles, lecture slides, research notes, and we're going to try and distill it all into a coherent audio study guide. The goal here is to get you ready to crush this section, without putting you to sleep.
Right.
And look, I know land and water use sounds a little dry.
Pun intended there.
Maybe a little. But when you actually dig into it, we're talking about venomous waters that could eat a man's eyes out.
Yeah.
We're talking about ruthlessly stealing entire rivers.
It's high drama.
It's high drama and the tragic collapse of shared resources.
It really is. And, before we get into the weeds, let's frame this correctly for the test. Unit 5 isn't just a vocabulary list. It is fundamentally about the consequences of human extraction. I mean, whether we are pulling food from the soil, fish from the sea, or copper from the ground, there is always a trade-off.
Cause and effect, that's what they're looking for.
Exactly. So don't just memorize the term drip irrigation. You need to understand why it prevents salinization and why it's so expensive. That's how you get the points.
Okay, so let's tackle this logically. We're going to follow the resources. We'll start with the foundation of everything, the soil and agriculture.
Makes sense.
Then we'll look at water management, then head out to the ocean for fishing.
Then mining.
We'll dig deep for mining, and then finally we'll look at where we all end up living urbanization.
The full tour of human impact. Let's start with the dirt.
Or, as scientists prefer, the soil. One thing that jumped out at me immediately is that soil isn't just dead rock. It's a living ecosystem.
That is a crucial distinction. Soil is this complex mixture. You've got your mineral particles, sand, silt, and clay, but it's mixed with organic material, living organisms, air, water.
And it all starts from what you call the parent material.
Right, the parent material, it sounds like a genetics term, and in a way it is. It's the bedrock, the raw rock that determines the basic chemical composition of the soil.
Right.
But to turn that rock into soil, you need two forces. And this is something students mix up constantly, weathering and erosion.
Okay, I think I have an analogy for this. Let me know what you think. Weathering is the hammer, and erosion is the truck.
Oh, I like that. Go on.
So weathering is the hammer that physically or chemically breaks the rock down into smaller pieces. But it just sits there.
It stays in place.
Right. Then erosion is the truck that picks up those pieces using wind or water or ice and carries them away somewhere else.
That's perfect. Weathering makes the mess, erosion cleans it out, and usually that's bad because when you erode the topsoil, you're losing all your fertility.
And once we have that soil, we start farming. And this is where the numbers get kind of terrifying. I was looking at the energy subsidy concept.
The hidden cost of the supermarket?
Basically, yeah. How much energy do we put in to get 1 calorie of food out? And the stat that blew my mind was for beef.
Oh, yeah.
It takes roughly 20 kilograms of grain to produce just 1 kilogram of beef.
It's a staggering inefficiency. And you have to think about where that grain comes from. We are using massive amounts of fossil fuel, oil and gas, to run tractors, to create fertilizers, to pump water.
Transport everything.
And to transport it. So modern agriculture is basically a machine that turns petroleum into calories.
Wow.
And because of the second law of thermodynamics, every time you move up a trophic level from the grain to the cow, you lose about 90% of that energy.
So eating beef is like driving a Hummer, and eating plants is the Prius.
Energetically speaking, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so that's the energy input. But what about the other huge one? Water. Farming is a thirsty business.
The thirstiest. Agriculture accounts for the vast majority of all human water use.
And for the exam, it looks like you need to be able to rank irrigation methods by efficiency. So, let's do a tier list. Best to worst.
Let's do it.
S tier, the gold standard, has to be drip irrigation.
Right, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Hoses with tiny holes lie right next to the plant roots, and they just drip water drop by drop. It's over 95% efficient.
Why?
Because the water doesn't have a chance to evaporate or run off, it goes straight to the roots.
So why doesn't everybody use it?
Well, it's expensive.
That's right.
And it's labor-intensive to set up. You can't just drive a tractor over a field full of fragile little hoses.
Got it. Okay, next tier down. spray or sprinkler irrigation.
This is what you see in the American Midwest, those giant rolling machines. It's decent, maybe 75% efficient,
Right.
but you're spraying water into the air, so you lose a pretty big chunk to evaporation before it even hits the ground.
Right. Then we get to the cheap stuff. Furrow irrigation.
Now we're getting into the low tiers. You dig trenches, the furrows between the crop rows, and you just flood them with water. It's cheap, it's easy, but you lose about a third of your water.
And finally, the F tier. Flood irrigation.
The oldest method in the book. You literally just dump water onto a field and let gravity do the work. It's incredibly wasteful. You lose 40% or more of the water.
And it causes two huge soil problems, right? Waterlogging and salinization.
Yes. Let's break those down because salinization especially is a tricky concept.
Yeah, it's weird to think that watering a plant can make the soil salty.
It is counterintuitive, so here's the mechanism. Almost all fresh water contains tiny amounts of dissolved salts, sodium, calcium, magnesium. When you flood a field in a hot, dry climate, the water evaporates really fast.
But the salt doesn't evaporate.
Exactly. The pure H2O goes into the air, but the salt stays behind. And over years and years, that salt creates this toxic crust that just kills the plants. It's a slow-motion disaster.
And waterlogging is just drowning the roots.
Pretty much. Roots need oxygen just like we do. If they're submerged in water, they can't breathe, and the plant essentially rots from the bottom up.
So we've got these problems. What are the solutions? If I'm writing an essay on sustainable agriculture, what do I pitch?
Okay, you pitch soil conservation. And look for these three terms. First, crop rotation. Don't plant corn every single year. Rotate it with something like beans or peas.
To put nitrogen back in the soil.
Exactly. Second, vegetative buffers. Leave strips of trees or shrubs around the edges of your fields. They act like a net, catching soil and pesticides before they run off into streams.
And the third one, which I saw mentioned a lot, is cover crops.
So crucial. After you harvest your main crop, don't leave the soil naked and exposed all winter. Plant something cheap like clover or rye just to hold the soil in place.
It prevents that erosion truck we talked about from driving away with your farm.
Precisely. You don't do that, you get the Dust Bowl.
Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about watering crops, but where does that water come from? This transitions us to one of the wildest case studies in the whole curriculum. Mono Lake.
Oh, the Mono Lake story is basically a legal thriller.
It's a terminal lake in California, and terminal means water flows in, but nothing flows out. It just evaporates.
Which makes it incredibly salty.
Mark Twain visited this place in the 1800s. He called it a lonely tenant of the loneliest spot on earth. And he even claimed the water was venomous and could eat a man's eyes out.
Twain was being a bit dramatic.
It's just a bit.
But the chemistry is intense, it's alkaline and hypersaline, so no, fish can't survive there. But billions of brine shrimp and alkali flies can, and because of them, it's a vital stopover for millions of migratory birds.
So the ecosystem was balanced. And then Los Angeles got thirsty.
And here comes the LA Department of Water and Power. In the early 1900s, they built this massive aqueduct to divert the freshwater streams that fed the lake.
And send that water south to the city. They literally kidnapped the rivers.
They did, and the consequences were immediate. The lake level dropped by 45 feet, the salinity doubled.
And those eerie limestone towers, the tufa towers, were exposed.
Right, which form underwater. They were just left exposed like these skeletons on the shore.
It looked like the death of an ecosystem. But this is one of the few environmental stories with a twist ending.
It is. It went to court, National Audubon Society v. Superior Court. And the ruling revived this ancient Roman legal concept called the public trust doctrine.
I love this idea. The idea that some things, the air, running water, the sea, they just belong to everyone.
Right. The court said the state couldn't just give all the water to LA. They had a duty to protect the lake for the public, for the people. It forced LA to reduce the diversions, and now the lake is slowly refilling.
It's a huge win. But usually we aren't stealing surface water like that. We're stealing it from underground.
Yeah.
Let's talk aquifers.
Groundwater. This is where the technical terms get important. You have the water table, which is just the top level of the saturated soil.
And when we pump it out too fast, we get a cone of depression.
Best name in environmental science.
It sounds like a sad ice cream flavor.
It does. Think of a really thick milkshake. If you suck hard on the straw, the level of the shake drops right around the straw, creating a dip.
A cone.
A cone. That's exactly what happens to the water table around a well. You pump faster than the rain can recharge it, and that cone gets deeper and deeper until your well and your neighbor's well goes dry.
And near the coast, this causes saltwater intrusion.
Right. So underground, Fresh water naturally pushes out towards the ocean. It keeps the salt water at bay. But if you pump out all the fresh water, you reduce that pressure. The salt water just marches inland to fill the void.
And once your well is salty...
It's ruined forever.
Okay, let's leave the land and head out to sea. Segment 3, fishing. And here we have to grapple with the tragedy of the commons.
Garrett Hardin's famous concept.
Explain it like I'm 5.
Okay. Imagine a public pasture where anyone can bring their cows to graze. It's free. If I bring one extra cow, I get all the profit from that cow.
Right.
But the cost, the overgrazed grass, is shared by everyone.
So your incentive is to just keep adding more cows.
Exactly. And so is everyone else's. So eventually the pasture gets destroyed. Freedom in a commons brings ruin to all. And the ocean is the ultimate commons.
And we are ruining it with some very specific tech. There's a distinction the notes highlight that trips everyone up. Trolling versus trawling.
Please, for the love of your GPA, do not mix these up. Trolling with an O is what your uncle does on the weekend. Dragging a line with a hook behind a boat, it's recreational.
Almost zero impact.
Almost zero environmental impact. Trawling with an A is the bulldozer.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Bottom trawling involves dragging a massive weighted net across the seafloor. It catches everything, but it also just physically smashes coral reefs' habitats. It creates underwater deserts.
Then there's purse seine fishing.
Think of a giant drawstring bag. You find a school of fish, you encircle them with a huge net, and you just pull the bottom closed. Incredibly efficient.
But the problem with all this efficiency is bycatch.
That's the collateral damage. Nets don't discriminate. When you're fishing for tuna, you might also catch dolphins, sea turtles, sharks.
And they just die.
They get tangled in the nets and drown. Millions and millions of tons of marine life were just discarded this way.
It's depressing. Is there a fix? The notes mention something called ITQs.
Individual transferable quotas. This is a market-based solution. So instead of a race to fish, where everyone tries to grab as much as possible, the government assigns each fisherman a guaranteed quota, a slice of the pie.
So they own a share of the catch.
Right. And because they own it, they have an incentive to make sure the fishery survives next year. If the fish population crashes, their quota becomes worthless. It forces them to think long term.
That's smart. Okay, grab your hard hat. We're going underground. Segment 4. Mining.
The extraction of non-renewable resources.
We generally split this into surface mining versus subsurface mining. And the trade-off seems to be surface mining ruins the land, subsurface mining ruins the miner.
That's a pretty fair generalization. Surface mining removes the overburden. That's the soil and rock sitting on top of the ore and just strips it away.
We have to talk about mountaintop removal. This is happening right now in Appalachia, and the scale is just hard to comprehend.
It's violent. I mean, they literally use explosives to blow the top off a mountain to reach the coal seams inside.
And where did the mountain go?
They push the rock and debris into the neighboring valleys. It's called valley fill. You are permanently altering the topography and burying entire streams.
Wow. Now, what about subsurface mining? Digging tunnels. The big environmental threat here is chemically complex.
Yeah.
Acid mine drainage.
This is a favorite topic for the exam, so here's the mechanism. Deep underground, you have rocks with iron sulfide, pyrite, fool's gold.
Right.
When you dig a mine, you expose that pyrite to air and water for the first time.
And they react.
They react to form sulfuric acid, and that acid dissolves heavy metals from the rocks. So you get this rusty orange toxic water flowing out of the mine and into local rivers. It lowers the pH so much, it kills everything.
And we can't talk about mining without the waste products. We have overburden, which we mentioned. What are tailings?
Tailings are the leftovers. After you mine the ore, you crush it and chemically process it to get the metal out. The sludge that remains is the tailings. It's often toxic and stored in these massive dams that sometimes fail.
Are there laws watching over this?
You need to know 2 dates, 1872 and 1977.
The mining law of 1872.
That was the Wild West law, designed to get people to move west. It let miners stake claims on federal land for pennies with almost no environmental rules. And surprisingly, it's still largely in effect.
And 1977.
That's SMCRA, the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. This one focuses on coal. And it says, you break it, you fix it.
Meaning reclamation.
Right. If you strip mine a site, you are legally required to fill the hole, replace the topsoil, and replant vegetation. You have to return the land to its original contours, or as close as you can get.
Finally, let's talk about the habitat we build for ourselves. Urbanization.
The great shift from rural life to city life.
The big concept here seems to be the feedback loop of urban blight and sprawl.
It's a vicious cycle. As people, usually the wealthier ones, move out of the city to the suburbs for more space, they take their tax dollars with them.
So the city has less money for police, for schools, for infrastructure.
Exactly. The city services decline, crime might rise, and the city degrades. That's blight. And this pushes more people to leave for the suburbs, which creates more sprawl.
And sprawl isn't just big neighborhoods. It's low-density development. It's designing communities where you have to drive.
That is the key. In a sprawling suburb, you can't walk to the grocery store. You are forced into a car. And this just increases fossil fuel consumption and CO2 emissions.
Whereas a dense city is actually more carbon efficient per person.
Much more. Walking and public transit are the greenest ways to move.
But cities have their own climate problem. The urban heat island effect. Why is downtown, 5 or 10 degrees hotter than the countryside?
It comes down to physics and a term called albedo.
Albedo is reflectivity, right? Like a white t-shirt versus a black t-shirt.
Exactly. Vegetation and soil, they reflect a fair amount of sunlight, and they cool the air through evaporation. But cities are made of asphalt, dark roofs, concrete,
Low albedo.
very low albedo. They absorb the sun's energy all day like a black t-shirt, and then they just radiate it back as heat all night.
So the city creates its own microclimate.
It does, and we make it worse by cutting down trees and blocking wind flow with all the skyscrapers.
So if we look at Unit 5 as a whole, from the farm to the mine to the city, what is the single takeaway?
The takeaway is that there is no free lunch. Every single resource we extract has a cost, an energy subsidy, or an environmental debt.
We see it in the 20-to-1 energy loss in beef. We see it in the acid mine drainage. We see it in the salt water filling our wells.
And that brings us right back to that public trust doctrine we talked about with Mono Lake.
Right. If the water and the air belong to the people, we have to ask, which people? Just us.
Or the people coming next.
Right.
That's the core of sustainability. Are we living off the interest, or are we just eating into the capital?
Because if we drain the aquifers today, we are effectively stealing water from our grandchildren. It's intergenerational theft.
It's a heavy thought, but a necessary one.
On that note, good luck with your studying. Master those irrigation rankings. Don't confuse trolling with trawling. And remember, soil is alive.
Good luck on the exam.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.